Good evening, and how are you? Welcome to today's lesson, Lecture in Forensic Investigation Masterclass Module 3, Part 2. This is the final part of Module 3, and then next we move to Module 4. We are continuing with the discussion on preparation of witnesses, stroke suspects rap list, and the introduction to documentary evidence analysis. This is the final part. Who is to conduct the documentary evidence? That's the question. Analysis ought to be done by qualified forensic document inspector or examiner. If possible, one who is a member of a well-established professional association, like the American Board of Forensic Document Examiners and the American Society of Questioned Document Examiners. These two organizations are American and they train experts to become experts in document examination. This does not mean that if you are a member of the IICFIP, that is, you have certifications from IICFIP, you cannot become a qualified forensic document examiner. You can, if you join these societies and acquire their certifications and they keep them by going through the continuous uh, uh, continuous professional learning programs, and you also keep the continuous professional learning or development requirements of the IICFIP for general investigative auditing investigation. How and where the analysis is performed. Forensic document examiners either work as private examiners within their own laboratory or for publicly funded laboratories. If an agency does not have questioned documents analysis capabilities, investigators may opt to send the evidence to a nearby lab or retain a private examiner. The techniques and the tools used in forensic document examinations leverage well established principles of physics and chemistry. A typical questioned document unit in a crime laboratory is equipped with microscopes, digital imaging, instrumentation, infrared and ultraviolet light sources, video analysis tools, and specialized equipment including electrostatic detection devices (EDD) and materials to perform analytical chemistry. Many forensic document examiners use only non-destructive techniques that use light or electrostatistics to examine documents for indented impression evidence or ink differentiation. However, a few examination techniques, such as liquid chromatography, are considered destructive because they require removal of small samples of ink from the questioned documents. These types of examinations may be sent off to laboratories that specialize in this type of ink analysis. For analysis of documents created by typewriters, fax machines, or printers, examiners may rely on various databases created for comparison purposes. During handwriting analysis, examiners compare samples provided from particular populations. Certain agencies, such as the US Secret Service and the German Federal Police, maintain larger databases. For example, the Forensic Information System for Handwriting, maintained by the U.S. Secret Service Forensic Laboratory, contained handwriting samples from tens of thousands of writers. Referring text from unintended impressions, documents may contain unintended impressions not visible to the naked eye, can be visualized through the use of an electrostatic detection device (EDD), such as the electrostatic detection apparatus (ESDA). An EDD uses applied charges and a toner to visualize areas of indented writing, making them visible to the eye. The ESDA uses the principle that intended areas of the document carry less negative charge than surrounding areas. This causes the toner used in the EDD to be attracted to this area, revealing the indentation that are present. Using this technique, unintended impressions have been recovered from up to 7 layers of paper beneath the original writings. Research has demonstrated that impressions can be successfully visualized from documents up to 60 years old, provided the papers are not mishandled or stored improperly. Preservation of witness testimony. To preserve witness testimony, the witnesses should not be allowed to discuss anything with the suspects and vice versa, because the discussion between them will contaminate the evidence. It must be noted here that the lists of witnesses and suspects are not defined until the interviews are concluded. These lists will keep on changing until interviews on step 7 and 9 are concluded. Steps 6 and 7 are the main interviewing steps in the forensic investigation process. Experience has shown that the witnesses lists proposed by the clients later on turn to be suspects, and the suspects proposed by the client turn out to be witnesses. Why do you think this happened? Clients, being human as they are sometimes biased as opposed to their investigators, and therefore they can forward some stuff as suspects, whereas they are principal witnesses, or they can provide a list of witnesses, and uh, uh, the contrary is true, that those people are principal suspects. Further investigation, questioning, and analysis of the statements is what will separate the wheat from the chaff. Experience has shown that the staff that are most trusted by the client are the most dishonest, and in fact, most clients get shocked to learn that the trusted staff are the principal suspects for financial wrongdoing in their organizations. If you are called upon to carry out proactive risk assessment in an organization, this is one of the areas you should be able to look at. The most trusted staff in an organization are the most risky staff as far as perpetration of internal wrongdoing is concerned, as far as fraud and corruption is concerned. Take relevant extracts from witness statements and reports to assist in your written plan. The plan for interviewing suspects and witnesses must be done as early as in the third step in the forensic investigation process. That is the planning and the resource allocation step. That is where you should plan and allocate duties appropriately to people who are suitably qualified and experienced to carry out interviews. The list arrived at before is not exhaustive, and that is why it is called RAG list. It will be discovered in steps 6 and 7, that as the actual interview of witnesses and suspect progresses on. Some of the witnesses will cross ranks and become suspects, and some of the suspects will also become witnesses. The RAG list usually provides a nice point where to start from and then progress on. For analysis of documents um, created by typewriters, fax machines, or printers, examiners may rely on various databases created for comparison purposes. During handwriting analysis, examiners compare samples provided from particular populations. Certain agencies, such as the US Secret Service and the German Federal Police, maintain larger databases. For example, the Forensic Information System for Handwriting, maintained by the US Secret Service Forensic Laboratory, contains handwriting samples from tens of thousands of writers. Differing text from indented impressions. Documents that may contain indented impressions not visible to the naked eye can be visualized through the use of an electrostatic uh, detection device, EDD, such as the electrostatic detection apparatus, ESDA. An EDD uses applied charges, a toner, or charges and the toner to visualize areas of intended writing, making them visible to the eye. The ESDA uses the principle that intended areas of the document carry less negative charge than surrounding areas. This causes the toner used in the EDD to be attracted to these areas, revealing indentation that are present. Using this technique, intended impressions have been recovered from up to 7 layers of paper beneath the original writing. Research has demonstrated that impressions can be successfully visualized from documents up to 60 years old, provided the papers are not mishandled. Detecting alterations, obliterations, erasures, and page substitutions. Obliterations, and erasures not visible to the human eye can often be detected through use of photography and other imaging devices that utilize ultraviolet and infrared wavelengths of light. Using radiation filtered at various wavelengths, an imaging instrument such as video spectral comparator (VSC) can reveal writing that has been added with a different ink or has been altered or removed by exploiting variations in the way different inks respond to different wavelengths of light. For example, under certain light sources combined with an infrared filter, a document containing information in ink that has faded over time may be enhanced or processed to appear darker and therefore more legible. Figure 7 is an obliterated note view, viewed with visible eye, courtesy of Maria Durina. This is a person who wrote a note and then tried to obliterate it so that you cannot be able to read. With the naked eye, you cannot be able to read this note because it has been obliterated by writing on it several times, writing on it. Uh, but when this is viewed under infrared radiation, when it is viewed under infrared radiation, you find that it will now clear. The infrared radiation will read behind the obliteration and then bring out something clear at least. Don't tell the corpse I was here. This was the instruction that it was written and then obliterated to just try to uh, hide evidence. But now, through forensic document examination, this note has been brought out clear. It is now clear. It is not like the previous one, which was done by the criminal, giving instruction to the victim. But here it has been done by the forensic examiner, and it is now clear evidence. Determining individual dye components, an examination called liquid chromatography can be conducted to identify the chemical composition of inks on a document. In this technique, a small cutting from the questioned document is dissolved in a solvent and analyzed. This is one of the few destructive techniques employed by the document examiner. The inks can be compared to the International Ink Library, a database maintained by the US Secret Service that contains data on more than 9,000 inks that have been manufactured since 1920. Typewritten and machine printed documents, documents created on a typewriter or printed with inkjet, laser printers, fax machines, and photocopiers may be sourced to a particular make or model or even to a specific machine. The printing process used to prepare documents can also be identified. When possible, the examiner should obtain non-standards and any available accessories from the machine in question, and the machine itself should be submitted for forensic examination. Questioned seals and stamps. Seals and stamps. Questioned documents bearing rubber stamp impressions, embossed seals, watermarks, or other mechanically printed marks may be submitted for examination. When possible, it is best to provide the examiner with any suspected devices associated with the questioned document that may have been involved in its preparation. This includes writing instruments, papers, or other substances, rubber stamps, sealing devices, such as notary seals, printing devices, or other mechanisms. To illustrate the value of a manufacturer's mark, consider a 1989 case when a young girl was kidnapped and murdered. Investigators called in forensic document examiners to examine the plastic garbage bag in which the victim was found. The minute markings created by the heat and the sealing process used in manufacturing such bags enabled investigators to determine that the bag was manufactured on the same machine within seconds of other bags found in the parent's house. This was key evidence that resulted in the conviction of the girl's mother for murder. Examination of handwriting. When a sufficient amount of writing from two different people is closely examined, there are always identifiable differences. Comparisons of writing samples take into consideration a wide variety of writing characteristics, including words and letter spacing, slant or slope, speed, pen position, capitalization of letters, embellishments, legibility, use of punctuation, proportion of letters, and other attributes. For example, one person may form the letter O in a clockwise motion, while another may form the same letter in a counter-clockwise motion. A particular writer may form the letter M using an upward moving arc formation, while another prefers to make a garland form of M, forming this letter with a U motion to resemble the garland on a Christmas tree. Document examiners take into account the various combinations of features present within the writing sample as a whole. In addition, In addition, examiners look for features such as hesitations in the natural flow of writing, possible retouching, or unnatural tremors. This may indicate that an unnatural writing process has been employed. No one writes with a machine-like precision every time, and the variations are evident in a person's writing even within the same document. For example, if a person writes an entire page of signatures, each one will vary slightly. A trained forensic document examiner can discriminate between natural variations in a writer's own handwriting and the significant differences denoting different writers. To conduct handwriting comparisons, the investigator should obtain non-writing samples that are similar in character to the document in question. If it is known in cursive, is written in cursive, it should be compared to non-cursive writing. If it contains upper and lowercase letters, the non-writings must also contain upper and lowercase letters. Where possible, the investigator should also obtain non-writing containing similar combinations of letters and numbers seen in the questioned document. For example, for comparison purposes, it is recommended that investigators obtain 20 to 30 repetitions of signatures, 15 to 20 repetitions of bank checks, uh, 3 to 4 repetitions of entire written letters. The investigator should also attempt to obtain non-writing that is prepared around the same time period as the questions writing. This is particularly important in cases involving writing from young people, as writing information may still be at developmental developmental stage, and by elder persons as writing may deteriorate with age or illness. Documentary evidence analysis techniques. These are basically the techniques applied in categorizing, investigating, interpreting, and identifying the boundaries of physical sources, such as written documents, whether in the private or public domain. Criteria for assessing the quality of documentary evidence. The following are the generally accepted criteria for assessing the quality of evidence. Number one, authenticity. Is this document genuine or of unquestionable origin? Credibility. Is the evidence free from error and distortion? Representativeness. Is the evidence typical of its kind? If not, is the extent of this untypicality known? Meaning, is the evidence clear and comprehensible? Relevance. Is the evidence relevant? Those are the questions that will assist you to determine and decide whether or not documentary evidence is genuine, authentic, and original evidence. Despite the fact that most documents are stored in a paper containing printed matter, handwriting, typewritten material, or a combination, firewall data and the messages may be left on the mirrors, walls, and locker doors or blackboards. As document examiner, you should thoroughly examine the questioned documents to draw deductions concerning the authenticity or spuriousness of the documents. According to Erickson, 2014, the rules of evidence necessitate that the production of the original document necessitates the production of the original document as evidence. Like the, but if there is loss of the original document, then a photocopied copy can be produced, attached to it, reasons why the original is missing. First generation photocopies are also preferred as opposed to second, third, and fourth generations of photocopies. The first generation of a photocopy is the first photocopy, and the second generation is the second photocopy. That is a photocopy on the photocopy. First generation copies copy made from the original document. Every time a copy is reproduced, the copy becomes a later generation photocopy. Later generation photocopies are much reliable, therefore courts do not readily accept them. Transporting documents. Transporting documents. Evidential documents should be packaged and transported with a lot of care. You will note that the documents are not supposed to be put in containers that may contaminate the evidence. And when transporting the evidence, courier services are preferred because couriers can be tracked, their trade can be tracked, and right away from the time of dispatch to the time of correction. And they are safe. It is not easy for one to intercept the persons and replace or destroy them. The postal mail especially the registered one, can also be used. When transporting the evidential documents, traveling with them in a car or in a public service vehicle is not allowed because uh, the person transporting the evidence can be intercepted, kidnapped, and not only the documents destroyed, but he himself is destroyed as evidence. It's one case which happens, and it involved an auditor who was carrying out a special audit of an alleged fraud and corruption. And when he was moving from the crime scene to the headquarters, traveling with the files and the documents, the criminals waited for him on the way, stopped the vehicle in which he was traveling, kidnapped him, took him out of the vehicle, went away with him, and not only destroyed the evidence, but also destroyed him. So it is very, very dangerous for the evidence to be uh, moved from one place to the other by public service vehicles or private vehicles. They should be sent by courier or postal registered postal service is recommended for the preservation of the integrity of the potential documents. If documents are picked from the client, be sure to take proper materials for transporting documents safely. Original documents should be protected in envelopes or folders. Envelopes should be large enough for the documents to lie flat. Documents should never be folded. Clear plastic folders can be used if they are the type of plastic that does not stick to the documents. Mirror folders are the best. Manila envelopes may also be used. Be certain that any information placed on the envelope is done before the documents are inserted into the envelope. Remove everything out of it so that the evidence document may not be mixed up with other documents or other information. Documents can also be transported in file folders in an attached case. They should never be placed in a pocket. They should never be placed in a pocket or a pocket box. It is against this background that evidence requires a chain of custody to ensure its physical integrity at all times. Each part that handles the evidence must sign the chain of custody as shown in Appendix 1. Instead of Appendix 1, I have attached a sample of, of the chain of custody in the next slide. At the end, keeping good chain of custody for all physical evidence as they are moved from one place to another or from one person to the other. It is required to assure the court that the item in court is the one that was collected from the crime scene and that it is in the same condition as at the time of collection. That is, it has not been contaminated or replaced or tampered with in any way significant enough to affect its integrity as an expiate. Advantages of using documentary evidence. One of the key advantages in conducting documentary research is that you can get access to information that will be difficult to get in any other way, such as people or cases who might not be willing to talk in a formal research interview or might be difficult to track down. Documents are often particularly useful for tracking change over time, and that is doing longitudinal research. Longitudinal research may be done either prospectively or retrospectively. Documents often make possible the correction of data over a longer period of time, as well as larger samples that might be corrected from questionnaires or interviews. Some documents may contain spontaneous data, such as feelings, and refer to actions that are recorded in a specific context, not with a view to answering a particular research question. Conventional documents may give us an insight into how people see things or how they want to present things. Either way, they provide a very particular account of reality, whatever the converser's motivation behind their account. Further advantages of using documents in research include the fact that such research is relatively low cost, particularly when the documents are easily accessible and already located in your workplace or on the internet. Documents vary a great deal in quality, often related to the perceived importance of recording certain information, but uh, some types of document can be extremely detailed and they yield much more information than you could hope to gain from a questionnaire or interview. Other advantages of documentary evidence include they are relatively cheap and easy to access. Documents can be invaluable for providing important details of events. Documents make things visible and are traceable. Documents may include various forms of evidence of non-formal, informal, and formal evidence. Can be streamlined through use of templates or e-portfolio software. Information can electronically shared or and stored, minimizes better paper-based evidence correction. Documents don't change mind or become emotional during repeated interrogation and examination. Documents do not forget. Documents do not require appointments for examinations or interrogations. You can interrogate them at any time. Documentary evidence is the best evidence since documents never lie. Most of the documentary evidences are keenly inspected before being accepted as evidence, thereby reducing any chances of them being ungenuine. Documents will assist in establishing intent, which is one of the most important elements in forensic investigation. Documents do not suffer from the effects of fatigue. Documents assist in quantifying the amount of loss. By examining the documents, you get the extent to which the act or other illicit activity being investigated has progressed. Documents may reveal conspirators. Documents may reveal conspirators to the act. Documentary evidence is readily acceptable as evidence of financial wrongdoing or any other crime for which they are presented as evidence. Time is running, so we have to move faster. Disadvantages of using documentary evidence. Nevertheless, documents are usually not designed with research in mind. The information recorded may be idiosyncratic or incomplete. Documents are misfiles left on people's desks for long periods or simply just do not get fully completed at all. Even standard ways of collecting data in a police station may change, so there may be information that is available for one period of time and not another. All of this will create gaps in data as well as coding difficulties. the motivation to correct certain types of data to will vary over time, perhaps related to the decision by a particular team to focus on a specific issue for a specific period of time or because of government targets. Other disadvantages of documentary evidence include access can be difficult for some document types of documents, may be charged on presentation rather than content, may be difficult to confirm authenticity and validity, requires writing and presentation analysis skills, requires document examination experts, may be may get contaminated if not carefully handled, may be misplaced or destroyed if not kept well. The writing on the document file may fade irretrievably. Let us move next. Documentary evidence. Documentary evidence is a document presented and allowed as evidence in a hearing or a trial, but not oral testimony. Gathering evidence. In order to gather detailed evidence, the investigator must understand the specific type of fraud that has been carried out and how the fraud has been committed. The evidence should be sufficient to ultimately prove the identity of the fraudsters, the mechanics of the fraud scheme, and the amount of financial loss. It is important that the investigating team is skilled in collecting evidence that can be used in a court case and in keeping a clear chain of custody until evidence is presented in court. If the evidence is inconclusive or there are gaps in the chain of custody, then the evidence may be challenged in court or even become inadmissible. Investigators must be alert to the documents being falsified, damaged, or destroyed by the suspects if they get access to it or to them. Evidence can be gathered using various techniques, such as testing controls to gather evidence which identifies the weaknesses which allowed the fraud to be perpetrated, using analytical techniques to compare trends over time, to provide comparatives between different segments of the business, applying computer-assisted investigation techniques, for example, to identify the timing and allocation of relevant details being altered in a computer system, discussions and interviews with employees, substantive techniques such as reconciliations, cars counts, and reviews of documentation. The ultimate goal of forensic investigation team is to obtain conviction by the fraudster if a fraud did not actually occur. For this reason, the investigators are likely to avoid deliberately confronting the alleged fraudsters until they have gathered sufficient evidence to extract a conviction. The efficient and effective correction of documentary evidence and also the um, testimonies from witnesses is what one uses to extract a conviction from a principal suspect. That kind of evidence is what will be used to cut off the advice of the suspect until he gives the confession and explains everything, how he did it, when he did it, with whom he did it, why he did it, and how much was involved, and the reasons why he did it. The interview with the suspect is crucial and part of evidence gathered during the investigation. The documentary evidence gathered so far, together with witness testimonies, can assist in a very deal during interviews with suspects. submission of documented evidence, evidence packaging. All effort should be made to maintain and preserve documented evidence in the same condition as it was received. And this is what we talked about the chain of custody to keep the integrity of the documents and also to ensure that they are not touched unnecessarily or replaced or destroyed uh, by anyone. Unless your aspects of good judgment dictate otherwise, all articles submitted as evidence should be carefully marked for identification. Evidence or exhibits coding is very necessary. It should be placed in an envelope or container that has been identified on the outside with the date, initials, case number, and other pertinent data prior to the evidence being placed inside and sealed. The envelope or container containing documented evidence should not be written on with the evidence inside it. At no time should the documented evidence be beneath a sheet of paper on which you are writing. The importance of protecting a document from indented writing impressions cannot be overemphasized. Each item of evidence must be placed in separate sealed envelope and or container. When multiple items are submitted as none of the same subject, they may be submitted in the same container when unusual circumstances are encountered. Evidence that is a reproduction copy of an original should not be submitted in plastic container. The printed areas may transfer and adhere to the surface of the container. As a general rule, paper envelopes are preferred for documented evidence. Original evidence is always preferable over reproduction copies. This is what we have already said, that the original is the best evidence. And if a copy is provided, then it must be a certified copy of the original, with the reasons attached to it why the original it was missing. The forensic investigation expert will examine the best evidence available. Witness should initial or sign and date each page, and if available, samples of non-request non-writings should be obtained. Latent fingerprint examinations. What is latent fingerprint? Latent fingerprint is the marks you leave on any document or any item when you touch it. The marks you leave there are not visible to the naked eye, and this is called latent prints or latent fingerprint, as opposed to the fingerprint which you put on a document or a paper after touching the ink and then you place your hand on the paper. Latent here means hidden, and this can only be seen under microscopic examination in the lab. Document examiners must work in the lab using special tools and equipments to do this kind of identification of evidence. Documents examination. During documents examination, the investigator should use an uh, elderly approach to examine the question documents and materials presented. He or she must adhere to uniform procedure for systematic and thorough study of suspect's documents to see to it that an important piece of evidence is not disregarded. Photocopies and the photographs must be made of original documents in the quickest possible time. Photographs safeguard the honesty of the document or materials by very an accurate copy of the items. Although an enlargement often reveals evidence which may not be without magnification, an enlarging photograph should also be done with a lot of caution. One can one-on-one photocopy should also be made so that the size of the document can easily be established. 100% enlargement is useful for examination, and an enlarged document is easy to examine and extract evidence that is not possible without an enlargement. This is the end to the discussion on module number 3. Module number 3 has got two parts. Part 1, as you have seen, is the discussion on the preparation of the rough list of witnesses and and uh, and the suspects. And then the part 2 is the introduction to documentary evidence analysis. In module number 4, we are going to discuss the chain of custody, which is a very important document in investigation. And then in module number 5, we will now discuss the main body of documentary evidence, correction, gathering, analysis, and examination. Thank you very much for listening and following this lecture. I now give you time to do comments and also ask questions. There is a question from Edwin Omondi. Is it possible to read any form of obliterated message using infrared radiation, even if it is thoroughly obliterated? This is a question, and what I can say is that no amount of obliteration can be able to hide the writings under it. It can be read unless that document is partly destroyed. That is when it cannot be able to be read using infrared radiation. Any obliterated document can be read using infrared radiation. It doesn't matter how much the obliteration is. What may bring the problem is the destruction of the document. Uh, for instance, burning it, shredding it badly, such that it cannot be reconstructed. Any other question? I can see only Edwin Omondi on the chat box, which means that the rest of the viewers are not they are not having any question or comment, and uh, therefore I will ask you from Edwin Omondi whether he is satisfied with my response to his question, and then we hang up if there will be no other question. Because we have only 5 minutes to end this lesson as per the timing we have. Edwin Omondi, if you have any comment to make on my response on or on your own question, it is your time. You have like 5 minutes to do that. As all Edwin Omondi prepares to comment on his own question and on my response, I would say that we have done a lot of lectures, and I would expect that those who have been with us from the beginning, because we have been doing this since December, and up to now is about 5 months since we started these online lectures, and therefore I expect to start seeing people sending in their test test responses or test answers for marking. Because when you send in your test papers or test answers for marking, and when they are marked and graded, is when you will also see your progress. You see whether you are grasping the course content or not, and then you try to read further, rewind, uh, and follow the lectures where read your notes. I wanted to believe that those who are participating on these lectures all the time have already applied to get the uh, soft copies of study notes so that you can be reading on your own. And when you come to this kind of lecture, you come uh, to follow the lecture like in a revision. You come to do like revision when you are following the lecture online. And that way, if you do that, if you read it before you come to attend the lecture, that is when you will identify uh, areas where you should ask for clarification, and then you complete your understanding of the lessons. Thank you very much. Time is up. We will notify you by rescheduling when we will be doing module number 4. Thank you very much. Be reading ahead of the lectures so that when we come to do the lectures, you do right revision. You ask questions, you do comments to make yourself understand better. Thank you very much, and bye bye. Good night.